In today's YouTube video, we're going to be going over how ChatGPT decides which SaaS brands to recommend to its users. So at the end of this video, you're going to walk away with three things. One, a quick AI search check to see exactly how your brand is performing in AI search and in large language models like ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity. Two, the top three ranking factors that go into ranking in ChatGPT. And three, technical SEO mistakes to avoid if you want your brand to show up and get recommended by ChatGPT. Let's go ahead and get into it. So if you're clicking on this video, you're probably already well aware how important it is to show up in large language models like Perplexity, Claude, or ChatGPT. But I really just wanted to make sure that we're highlighting why it's so important. So these are from different SaaS brands. The first one's from Ahrefs. So Ahrefs is self-reporting that they're seeing a 23 times higher conversion rate compared to SEO when it comes to inbound traffic to their website from different channels. And that is a very common thing to see across different verticals in the SaaS category. 10% of all conversions come through organic AI traffic, according to Vercel, and $1 million in ARR is credited to AI search, according to Tally. So even though you're getting a lot less traffic than you used to with SEO, the conversion intent traffic that you are getting from these large language models is astronomically high. So it's going to become really important for your brand to show up in large language models like ChatGPT. The next thing I want to go over is what actually happens behind the scene when your ICP searches or prompts something on ChatGPT and ChatGPT actually has to conduct a web search. So what happens is what we call a query fan out. So let's say you type in one question, a pest customer support platform for mid-market teams. ChatGPT in the background, or Gemini or Google AI mode, or insert your large language model of choice, a lot of the times they're going to conduct 9, maybe even 25 searches on your behalf and then synthesize that information to its users. And only a select few brands will show up in those answers. So not only is it searching traditional SEO like Google and Bing indexes, it's also looking at different industry listicles. It's also looking at different review sites, and it's also looking at different Reddit threads. So it's looking across a whole ecosystem across the web to find the specific brands that it's going to be recommending to its users. So the story here is it's no longer search engine optimization, it's search everywhere optimization. And it's really important to reverse engineer this process. So if ChatGPT is really important to you or Claude is really important to you, you need to start collecting data on prompts that are important to your brand and reverse engineering how Claude is coming up with that answer. Another thing I wanted to talk about is a kind of a key difference between SEO versus AEO, which stands for Answer Engine Optimization, or GEO, Generative Experience Optimization, AI search, whatever you want to call it. It's optimizing your brand so it shows up in large language models. So in traditional SEO, the name of the game is getting as many top keyword rankings as you possibly can to drive as much organic traffic to your website. And hopefully that organic traffic converts into leads, which will hopefully turn into customers. AEO and GEO is a lot different. So a ChatGPT response for me may look a lot different from a ChatGPT response to someone else, even if they have similar interests. ChatGPT is very personalized depending on who's using it. ChatGPT knows your search history, it knows your prompt history, it knows your goals. Whatever information you've given ChatGPT, it's going to cater its responses to you. So that query fan out analysis that I showed earlier looks a lot different to different people. So the name of the game with AEO and GEO is to increase your probability as much as possible and to capture as much market share as you possibly can when it comes to query fan out. Another thing I did want to touch on is that SEO is still extremely important. AI answers are actually built on search results. So those fan out subqueries are real searches. There's a lot of strong evidence that ChatGPT uses both Bing and Google. OpenAI is a partner with Microsoft, and Microsoft owns Bing. So there's a lot of strong evidence that it really relies on Bing. And it also relies on Google search data too. So it's really important to optimize for both. There's been some studies too about the overlap between traditional SEO and AEO. 76% of AI overview citations in Google come from pages in Google's top 10. 28.6 of Perplexity citation rank in Google's top 10. And crawlability, indexing, and freshness still decide what large language models can see and what ultimately they're going to surface to its users. Another SEO is not dead slide here, and then I'll move on, I swear. Google still sends a ton of referral traffic to your website. Maybe not as much as it used to, but 110 times more traffic than your traditional large language model. So even though it may have lower purchase intent, you're still going to get a lot of MQLs if you rank really well in Google search. So at the beginning of the video, I talked about a method for finding out how you're exactly doing an AI search. And it really comes down to just a few prompts that you should be typing in on a consistent basis in ChatGPT, in Claude, in Perplexity, and all of these large language models. So they're outlined on this slide. So best blank for your audience, you versus your competitors, competitor alternatives, category for mid-market teams, so on and so forth. You kind of get the picture. These are going to be the types of prompts that your ICP is going to be asking ChatGPT or Google AI mode. So you really need to gauge what brands it's referencing. And if there's commonalities between all of them, then you need to start reverse engineering how your competitors are getting mentioned and how you're not. And as of right now, in July of 2026, there's a recent study done that 14% of the 50 most cited domains, only 7 appear on all 3 platforms. So as you're doing this exercise, you're probably going to notice a lot that it's going to vary between different large language models. So again, you really need to identify where your ICP is most likely searching. So from my experience, it's going to be 3 places: Google, it's going to be ChatGPT, and it's going to be Claude. Those are kind of the big 3. Even Perplexity, even how great of an experience it is and how your technical users may be using it more than your common person, I would still say if you focus those 3, you're going to be sitting in a really good position from an AEO perspective. A pretty big stark difference between AEO and SEO is that brand mentions are actually a little bit more powerful than backlinks. So with traditional SEO, if another website actually linked to your website, that was a very strong ranking signal. And if you look at like the history of SEO, there's been a lot of different backlinking strategies, some really white hat, good ones, good PR, good outreach, good guest posting, and then some sketchy ones where you're doing some link inserts or buying links on a link farm. So backlinks have been an integral part of the SEO industry for a long time. But as far as ChatGPT and Claude, it seems like brand mentions are a lot more powerful. So if a viral TikTok video happens, talking about the best software for X, or a lot of people on Twitter or X are talking about your brand, but maybe not mentioning or not linking to your website, that's actually a stronger ranking signal for these large language models. And personally, I think that's a good thing because that really signals that you need to build a brand across all of these different platforms, because really I think that's where the strong user intent is. Another interesting stat is that 43.8% of ChatGPT citations are listicles and comparisons. So this has kind of been a hot topic. A lot of brands have been writing their own listicles and comparison articles. So if, let's just say you're HubSpot, for example, and they write an article titled "The Best CRM for Small Businesses." Whether they are or not, I don't want to get into that. But a lot of these times, and I'm saying HubSpot is doing this, but a lot of times these SaaS brands are ranking their own brand as number 1. And what we're seeing is, yes, ChatGPT may be linking to that piece of content, but a lot of the times they're not actually recommending your brand when you do this. So this is kind of a very dangerous game to play. And I'd highly recommend maybe trying to get in different, industry listicles if possible, building those relationships, doing some outreach rather than writing them yourselves. So yes, while you may increase your vanity metrics of getting more citations in ChatGPT, at the end of the day, they still may not recommend your brand to its users. So just be really careful here. Definitely not my favorite form of trying to increase your presence in large language models. And just like SEO, it seems like these large language models really love fresh pages. So when I talk about fresh pages, that means up-to-date content. So 89, almost 90% of ChatGPT's top cited pages were updated within the past year, and 76% were refreshed within the last 30 days. So if you have old content, maybe you're seeing a lot less referral traffic, maybe you're seeing some keyword rankings decline, it's a really low-hanging fruit opportunity to update that piece of content, and I guarantee you'll probably see more citations in ChatGPT. So going back to brand mentions, I call this the mention stack. Here are the kind of the three things I think you need to focus on. So editorial, so industry listicles, review roundups, YouTube reviews. YouTube is huge for showing up in AI answers. So whether you can partner with someone that's a YouTube creator or you create your own YouTube videos, you're going to get a huge head start on AEO. There's a 0.7 correlation according to the Ahrefs study that I've mentioned a few times in this video. Community, so Reddit is big. So building a natural presence on Reddit is what I would recommend. So I've seen a lot of brands create their own branded Reddit profile, become really transparent about, hey, I am, so-and-so representing the brand, and genuinely answering users' questions in the most straightforward way possible. I've seen that really be successful. Now, there are some gray and black hat strategies to Reddit as well. You can create an anonymous profile. You can post as a regular user recommending your brand to different users on Reddit. As of right now, if I'm being completely honest, it does work. Would I recommend it in the long term? I would not. Eventually, ChatGPT, Google AI mode, I think it's eventually going to come back to bite you. We've seen this throughout the history of SEO. Anytime you're doing some sort of backlinking or trying to game the system, you will get penalized at some point. So it's a good short-term strategy, sure, if that's what you're going for. If you're going for more long-term sustainable growth, it's something I would recommend staying away from. But getting mentioned on different industry review sites like G2 and Capterra specifically, those have a very, very, very strong correlation to showing up in ChatGPT answers. So if you can show up strongly in Reddit threads in G2 and Capterra, again, you're like 90% there. So again, your own off-site channels. So if you have a strong YouTube presence, if you've been on podcasts, if your executives have thought leadership content that goes viral on LinkedIn, those also really seem to help with your brand showing up really well in ChatGPT. And here's some technical SEO consideration when trying to optimize your website for AEO. Make sure your robots.txt is not blocking any of these AI search bots. So go to yourdomain.com/robots.txt and make sure you are not, again, blocking GPT bot, AI search bot, Claude bot, Google extended. If you're blocking those, you are going to be absolutely invisible in AI answers. So again, very low hanging fruit. Just make sure you're not blocking there on the robots.txt file. Something else I want to call out too is Cloudflare has this setting. So if you're on Cloudflare, where a lot of times they'll block these AI crawlers by default. So just make sure to check your Cloudflare settings and turn that off. Another thing too is if your site is very JavaScript heavy, ChatGPT doesn't render JavaScript, neither does Claude, and I think Perplexity also struggles with it. So if you have like an SPA website, or again, if it's just super JavaScript heavy, I'd strongly consider either creating additional pages that are more HTML friendly, or maybe revamping your website so there's a lot more HTML to it. So it really comes down to three things. One, traditional SEO. Get indexed, rank well, and get into the conversation. Optimize for those query fanouts. Make sure your content stays fresh, and please do not block any of these AI search engine crawlers, and you should see a lot more success in your endeavor to rank your SaaS in ChatGPT. Thank you for watching this video. If you've made it this far, this is like a brand new channel. I'm sure you could probably tell from me kind of maybe struggling talking through these slides, but if you could please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel to help it grow. As I get better and create better content, I would very much appreciate it. And if you do need help ranking your brand in Google AI overviews, traditional Google search engine result pages, in ChatGPT, I do own an agency that does this. We've helped dozens of SaaS brands get more citations, get more brand mentions and large language models. So if that's something you need help with, feel free to click the link in my bio. Thank you.